G'day folks, Steve Christensen's my name. Welcome to this broadcast. We are using a brand new broadcast mechanism called StreamYard. You may see up in the corner here, over here. Can't go over that far. Anyway, so we are broadcasting on our YouTube channel, which you can find at icecream.video. And you can also look at our personal Facebook page for this. We had planned to do this a little bit later in the year and kind of had some difficulties here at the facility. They were changing out lights and turning off power and different things. So we're going to kick the new year off with this presentation. And if you are watching, turn my watch off. If you are watching and you can hear me okay, just leave a little something in the comments for me. So I know that you can hear okay. Would be great. We're going to jump into this process pretty quickly. Most people on, yep, thumbs up. Madeline's given us the thumbs up. So yeah, a couple of things before we kick off. Happy New Year to you all. Larry David says that you have a 2-week window to wish people a Happy New Year. That's the statute of limitations, I've been told. So Happy New Year to you. I hope that your New Year's celebrations were appropriate and that you've got some great goals for this year, which we certainly do here at our Scoop School facility. So didn't want to take too much of your time today. Let me just share my screen here. You might get a crazy looking there we go. I'll start this presentation. So we were invited, I was invited to participate in the World Festival or the Gelato Festival World Championships. They were held in November in Bologna, Italy. Great honor. There were, I think, 10 judges from all around the world, mostly Europe, some from the Middle East, some from Asia, and had some great connections there, networking with other ice cream and frozen dessert professionals from around the world. So wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the flavor profiling that went on when you think about this process of trying to judge the world's best gelato. And let me say from the outset that the term gelato, I guess, is used the same way that we use the term ice cream here in the US, in that it's kind of a generic cover-all term. There were some sorbets and other water-based products that were included in the Gelato Festival. So before we jump into that, just wanted to go quick plug for some of the associations and organizations that can help you out. Again, my name's Steve Christensen. I'm the self-appointed headmaster at Scoop School here. We're in Wildwood, Missouri. And all we do is training and education for ice cream and frozen dessert businesses. We do live classes here. The schedule is on our website. We also do live stream classes. I think we've had a lot of success in taking our standard 3-day course and live streaming it. So now you can actually sit at home and watch a live stream course. We've got, I think, a pretty good infrastructure here for a lot of back and forth. We've got a filming cart that we call Frank that has multiple cameras, multiple microphones, speakers, monitors. It's pretty good. We do a bit of consulting. And what we typically do every Friday is we actually live stream from Scoop School here. Sometimes it might be in the store, live streaming a making of ice cream, a recipe. Other times it might be talking about marketing and other business aspects. If you'd like to be a part of that, that happens with our Scoop School community. Again, it's a $50 a month subscription. You can stay as often as you want, but you do get access to all of the pre-recordings of our previous live streams. And we did it all last year. It's a great program, good connectivity, a lot of interaction within those who join. All that information is on scoopschool.com. Also, I serve as the executive director of the North American Ice Cream Association. That is an association, again, that's based out of our headquarters here in Wildwood, Missouri, a little bit west of St. Louis. But if you want to network with other people who are either successful in or getting into the ice cream business, there is no other association like it. We have a scholarship program. Last year, we gave out $20,000 to students or I should say, to students and employees of our members. Great program. We do a monthly publication, the Bulletin. Our convention this year is in early November 2022 in the Fort Worth Convention Center. And again, all of that information is found at icecreamassociation.com. That should actually be .org. I apologize. icecreamassociation.org. All that information is there. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Italy. And again, I've first time using the StreamYard platform, so I can't see if you've got questions. Let's just save questions to the end, if you wouldn't mind. Anyway, this is the gelato store in the airport at Bologna. You believe it? I just love Italy so much because of their passion for food, and in particular, gelato and frozen desserts. So this is a company called Venci. They are quite famous for having a chocolate fountain or a chocolate waterfall in every one of their locations. You can see to the extreme right there, they've got a little chocolate waterfall coming down. But some of their locations around Italy and throughout Europe actually has a whole wall, which is a chocolate fountain. Unbelievable. At the airport, just get a quick snack. Oh, buongiorno. Have some gelato. I want to tell you a bit about the process here of the World Gelato Masters. This was a long time in the making that actually resulted in, this COVID came in right through the middle of it, and it kind of had to be nimble and change through the process. Started about 4 years ago, and basically they held heats and finals over every country on the planet. So there was about 3,500 initial entries conducted over international heats, finals. We had them in the States. We had them through the UK, through Europe, Australia, the Philippines, everywhere around the world. Gelato and ice cream makers could participate in this process. Now, the final was going to be in person. So the top, I think it was 28, 30 finalists that went to the finals, that won their heats, won their regional and national finals, were going to be flown or fly to Bologna in Italy and recreate their flavors for the judges. However, with COVID and a lot of things that were happening, restrictions on flights, they basically sent in their ingredients, their recipes from all around the world, and had, because the facility that was hosting the event was the Carpigiani headquarters, the flavors were then made by the Carpigiani chefs under supervision of those who entered. So that was a crazy thing, is that, you've kind of built this process up where you're a finalist in the World Masters of Gelato. Then you have to have someone else. You have to trust someone else to make your products. And again, every one of them was a super high quality. And hats off to the team. Marco here, Marco Filippi, super nice guy, one of the chefs there at the Carpigiani facility in Bologna, did most of the manufacturing. So again, a lesson in being nimble so far as you think it's going to go one way, then you've got to kind of pivot and make sure that you've got another option. And it probably wasn't the best option for some chefs who really do want to be involved in the handcrafting of their flavors. But Marco was saying that there was quite a lot of pressure. These guys FaceTiming while he was making the process. It was great. A few other photos of behind the scenes. This was made or broadcast from the Gelato Museum within the Carpigiani facility. Again, if you're going through Bologna, if you're going to the Egypt show, well worth stopping into. They've got some fascinating pieces of equipment there and nostalgia from the early 1900s on ice cream making equipment and ice cream ice cream and gelato memorabilia. So that was kind of like the view from where we all sat. You'll notice a few people asked about how do you kind of clean your palate between each gelato flavor. It was basically just crackers and water. But it was a great experience. Again, you'll find all of these if you search on YouTube for Gelato Festival World Masters 2021. Each of the sessions, there were 4 judging sessions. They went for about 2 hours each, and the final is actually available on YouTube, so you can watch it. I'll show you some clips as we go. But basically what happened was, out of these 32 flavors, the flavor would be introduced, and then basically we would watch a 1-minute introduction video. So each of the contestants, the applicants, finalists, produced a 1-minute video to basically describe either the flavor, how they came up with the flavor, the origins of the flavor, the story of the flavor, which I actually thought was a great idea. It didn't appeal to some because you had a lot of kind of older gelato chefs, both male and female, that, you know, just basically stood in front of their camera. Others spent significant money on production. I'll show you one of those videos in a minute. But again, it comes back to marketability of your ice cream. Same in our industry. We have people that are quite comfortable doing a YouTube live or a Facebook live or posting video. Others shy away from it. And if you had a great video, it didn't mean you won the whole thing, but the videos were judged independently of the tasting and quality and so forth. So it actually did add to the process. So we watched an introduction video. We voted on that. It was the only vote that was public. So we would hold a little sign up, and then we'd basically sample the flavor. So a tray would come out, we'd sample that flavor, and it was judged basically on 4 categories. It was judged on the flavor, obviously, the flavor of the product, boldness of flavor, subtleness, but it was also judged on structure. And that meant 2 things. One was the actual structure of it so far as its richness, its butter fat, the mouthfeel, but also on the process of variegates. Was it just plain? Did it have variegates? Did it have particulates in it that had bits and pieces that gave you some mouthfeel? Creativity was one of the other ones. So again, the more creative that people were, they got more points on it. And then finally, the video presentation. And then after we went through that process, the judge would be basically broadcast in, so it's large monitors there. And we had the opportunity to ask through interpreters sometimes. About a third of them spoke English. Spoke a little bit to the chef about how it was made, some of the inspiration about it, some questions about the industry in their particular area. So it was quite fascinating. I'd like to show you a video here of the process very quickly. This was from a gentleman who basically, let me jump up here, who had probably one of the most dynamic videos that we saw. So let me play this for you. Let me know if you can hear it okay.
With the flavor frutta di pistacchio, con la gelateria Fasecas Cuciasta, spero di averlo detto correttamente, da Budapest, quindi Ungheria. Andiamo subito a vedere il video di Adam Fasecas.
I don't think you can see that. Let me just pause that for a minute. And let me make sure that everybody can see what I'm seeing here. Can't see the presentation, not seeing the pictures. Yes, you are supposed to. Let me just share this window here. Again, first time I've used StreamYard. It's supposed to be pretty good. Let me share a Chrome tab. Share. Okay, let me play that again. apologize for the delay here.
Fazekas Ádám vagyok, a Fazekas cukrászda egyik tulajdonosa. Egy kis európai országból, Magyarországról érkeztem. Nagy álmokkal, szakmai alázattal és szűnni nem akaró tudásvággyal. Hatalmas előrelépés, egyben megtiszteltetés, hogy 2019-ben a Magyarországi Bajnokság megnyerése mellett a Next Generation kategória győztesévé választottak Rómában is. Különleges fagylalt költeményemet cukrázánk egyik legkelendőbb desszertje ihlette. Így jött létre a sós pisztáciafagylalt, tonkababbal fűszerelt mállevelővel és a pisztáciás ropogós réteggel. Remélem, az önök tetszését is elnyeri. Amelyik zsűritag ki tudja mondani, hogy egészségetekre, vendégem egy fagyra.
Yeah, I think we finally got it figured out. Anyway, so then basically
Hai visto come
it would kind of pan from the
noi qui abbiamo
hosts.
fatto un balletto.
And then
Arriverà il gelato di
they would bring
vediamo un po'.
the so we'd have an
Eccoci.
interview here with the chef.
Ciao,
There he is.
ciao Emiliano, ciao Adam.
Emiliano.
And then you can I'm going to mute them. And then they basically bring around the product to the judges. And you can kind of see video here as they kind of scroll through. We're all kind of tasting it and so forth. So it was a great process. I'll stop sharing that one. Stop that one. Go back to here. Okay, got some thumbs up. I think we've got it. I think we got it sorted out. So yeah, a great experience. Watch the video, taste the product, and then basically interact with the judge. Let me go back to that screen share, and I'll just share the I wish I could just share. I think it's going to give me an opportunity to share a portion of the screen. There we go. I think I'm going to go back to this. And you didn't really miss much from the process here. Let me just make sure I can see it and you can see it. Nice. Okay. So, got to figure out how to do anyway. This isn't the process at Scoop School, by the way. We've got the Scoop School live stream down. Awesomeness. So the process was, again, they introduced the flavor. We watched the video. We sampled on those 4 categories. This is what the scorecard was like. Quite a fascinating process. So let's talk a little bit about some of the flavors, flavor profiling, what worked, what was more successful than others, because in the grand scheme of things, I'm not going to say that one didn't work because they got to the world final. But I think some were more successful than others, both in their presentation, a few other things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about alcohol. So there were a couple of alcohol flavors. Obviously, in the process of European gelato, there's a lot of wine, liqueurs, very popular in Italy and throughout Europe. I'm probably not the best person, most qualified person. I don't drink personally. So there were a couple of alcohol flavors. Some worked, some did not. And we get this all the time, both at the association and at Scoop School, people calling and saying, well, I want to do something that's alcohol-based. And the question generally should be asked that, do you want the actual buzz of alcohol, or do you just want the flavor only? Because, again, some of these entrants were just basically the flavor, and the actual experience wasn't overpowering with the liquor process. Others actually were. There was a lady that entered a gin flavored ice cream or gelato, gin and bitter orange. And again, I've never had gin before in my life. So tasted it, was very strong. And in this process of asking questions, I asked the lady through the interpreter, tell me a little bit about the development of this flavor. Is alcohol popular in your area, in your business? Most of these people had their own stores, restaurants, and the response was not really. So you've got to have a look at what your market wants and what's popular in your market versus what you think you would like to do. So I found that quite fascinating because the alcohol in that product was very strong. And I only had a tiny little bit because it was so strong. I think you really need to have a look if you're looking at alcohol ice cream is to do you want the flavor of it or do you want the buzz? Because sometimes you can boil down alcohol to get the flavor and you'll kind of flash off in that boiling process a lot of excess water and you'll burn off alcohol as well, and you'll just be left with the taste like a nice consistent syrup, concentrated syrup. Always check on the dosage. Again, I felt that one of them was just overdosed with alcohol. This was a wine-based gelato, but again, in the process, they had what I would call sultanas. I'm going to call them sultanas, raisins. I think sultana is a plump raisin. Anyway, there was a lot more going on in the flavor that kind of complemented the base flavor of the wine. This was a wine-based gelato flavor versus this was the gin. And again, gin and bitter orange. Wasn't a lot of variegated in this particular gin flavor. It was just gin with a bit of bitter orange marmalade on the top. And boy, oh boy, put hairs on your chest. So yeah, alcohol, not a lot of alcohol flavors. Some were featured, some did well, some did not. And I think it's pretty, part of the process here in the US market, wherever you are, is that it is a trend, but you've really got to have the demographic. It's got to fit your brand. You've got to have the location in order to feature that. I know a lot of the family-based demographics, alcohol just doesn't work. So another thing that came up was the process of mouthfeel and this process of variegate and particulate. I'm reading a book currently. I don't think it's here, but it's a story of Steve Harrell starting off and basically creating what ended up being a Ben and Jerry sensation of just heaps of variegates and heaps of particulates in ice cream. And people want mouthfeel. So that mouthfeel process is important to a lot of people. There was a pear sorbet in Group 2, and I love pear sorbet. We make pear sorbet all the time here in Scoop School when pears are in season. Probably one of the best pear sorbets I ever had was a pear sorbet that was interlaced or variegated, if you will, with shaved Parmesan cheese. And that was actually at the Seegypt show in Rimini, Italy, because it had the flavor and the little bit of grittiness of pear, but it also had the sharpness and a little bit of mouthfeel of that small sheet or shaving of Parmesan cheese, and it was out of control. These pears came from a very specific region from the Czech Republic, and let me tell you that the flavor was incredible. The structure was really nice, but some of the judges, when I spoke to them independently, said I just felt like it needed something else. And sometimes we find that in the ice cream industry is that, really a good flavor should be able to stand on its own, like vanilla does, like chocolate does. But when you get into some of these other strawberries and butterscotches and maybe even peanut butters, excuse me, customers expect just a little more something, a little bit more than just flavor. It's very difficult now just to have a flat peanut butter ice cream or a flat strawberry ice cream even. A lot of people want a little bit of shortcake in there or a variegate of strawberry or a little bit of crunch of something else. So consider that in the process of developing flavors, is that sometimes people expect more than just the flavor itself. Again, those classic flavors of vanilla, chocolate, again, sometimes strawberry, can a lot of times get away on their own. but people do want a party in their mouth, is what we say. So consider that in the process of flavor development. I think that's pretty important. And kind of pairing different products with one another. Do some experimentation. I would never have thought to put a sharp Parmesan cheese into a pear sorbet, but it was absolutely amazing. So this was the pear sorbet. Again, beautiful flavor, beautiful structure. It held up very well. Again, you've got a little bit of grittiness with the pear, which is expected. But there was just nothing else in there to kind of lift it. No variegates, no ribbon, no mouthfeel. And that kind of let her down a little bit, I think. Stories appeal to customers. And we found that sometime the videos that were provided by the entrants basically told the story of how the flavor came. But there was a gentleman there that told a story, and he was filming it, and all of these different video techniques that were used. This guy just stood out in a rice paddy with his iPhone and told a story about this is the rice paddy where his grandmother worked, and spoke a little bit about family tradition. And what happened was that before you even put the spoon in your mouth, you had this connectivity, if you will, to the story that came to the development of this flavor. It was very simple. It was very effective. And I really feel as though, a lot of times we don't connect a story to a flavor. A lot of people look at a story or some history or tradition to their brand. Why is their place called Nana's Ice Cream or Buster's Frozen Custard or whatever the name is? Often when you attach your business name to a person or a personality, that's almost instant backstory, instant credibility, if you will. But not a lot of us do it with flavors. And that's what happened with this guy. It was simply a very simple rice, milk, honey, and sugar, which was a traditional dessert. And I'd just like to, I'm going to stop sharing this. Hopefully this works. And then go back to that one tab. A couple of questions while we're going here. Can you make your own gelato base powder? Look at this. Thanks, Melissa. Can you make your own gelato powder base? Difficult with powder base because in the process of making a gelato powder, you do need to have dried ingredients. And a lot of times, caseinate is one of those dried milk powders. You'll need some sort of protein in there. You'll need some bulking agents. Skim milk powder may do it. And you'll also need stabilizers as well. So, sometimes it's a bit of a challenge to do that. It's easier to make your own liquid base than it is to make your own powdered base. Another quick question from Bob. Good to see you on here, mate. Any chef produce a true drizzle stracciatella gelato for variation on mouthfeel and flavor? That's a great question, Bob. Long-term member of the Scoop School community. Yes, mate, they used some chocolate in some of the flavors, but there wasn't a standard stracciatella. And a stracciatella or stracciatella is primarily a vanilla gelato, sometimes just a cream-based gelato with some dark Italian hard shell flaked in or drizzled in. And there wasn't a lot of that, actually. There were some flavors that had a little bit of chocolate in them, other flavors, but they did not, unfortunately. They didn't use a lot of that. Let me just show you this video of the rice patty here. Share. It gave me an option to share before. Share a window. Oh, here we go. A Chrome tab? No, I didn't want to share that. I thought I did it before successfully because it asked me to do it. I'm going to share this screen, see how I go. Share the entire screen. Oopsie, I got to share system audio. Again, I love learning new things. Share system audio. Let's go. Okay, let me show you this video from this rice field.
Cotti, con il gusto il mio primo vero latte. Dalla gelateria Vero Latte di Vigevano, Pavia, abbiamo Massimiliano Scotti. Vediamo subito il video.
Per raccontarvi il mio gelato ho voluto portarvi qui, nel cuore della Lomellina, dove tuttora nasce il riso rosa Marchetti, un riso semi-integrale profumato, meraviglioso, nasce da acque sorgive. Tantissimi anni fa, in queste terre, le mondine, e tra quelle mondine c'era mia nonna Esterina, raccoglievano a mani nude questo riso e lo trasformavano insieme a del latte a un sostentamento vero e proprio per le famiglie più povere. La domenica poi, mischiato a un po' di miele o un po' di zucchero, diventava il dolce tipico di casa della domenica. Questo dolce l'ho voluto trasformare in un gelato per dare memoria a queste mondine, alla mia terra, ma soprattutto a mia nonna Esterina. E questo dolce che mi ha fatto crescere è diventato poi appunto questo gelato che nel 2017 è diventato il miglior gelato d'Europa per Gelato Festival. Ora sta a voi assaggiarlo e dare memoria a questa terra e a queste persone che hanno raccolto il riso per tantissimi anni. Grazie a voi.
So, yeah, really, again, it was a very simple gelato recipe, but one that really resonated with a lot of people, which I thought was pretty awesome. A couple of quick questions. I'm finding it hard. There we go. Finding it hard to find liquid mix in my area. I have to drive to Knoxville. I may try making my own liquid mix. Melissa, good question. Liquid mix is a lot easier to make than powdered mix, but let me tell you that depending on where you are and whether the agricultural department or the ag department has a lot of say in the pasteurization process, it can be a real challenge. And again, some of the things that we do in our weekly live streams actually cater for that. Let me jump straight back into the presentation. I really wish I might have sorted it out or not. So again, stories. Tell the story, develop a story. Some of the flavors that came out missed the opportunity to bedazzle visually some of the aspects that we figured they were going to do. And I really felt like some of those flavors, again, we mentioned a little bit about the variegate side of things, but the garnish and the way we dress our ice creams is really important as well. Now, you know, the gelato or the gelato pans or the Napolis, they're about a 5-liter, 5-quart pan. And again, they've got that beautiful display on the top, but they're spaded from the back because they want to be able to have that dressing on the top available for everyone to see. As the pan kind of gets used more, they're not scraping from the top, they're scraping from the side. It's a little bit easier to do it with a gelato pan than it is with a bucket. However, after touring throughout Europe and a lot of the different countries and really researching gelato and ice cream, I really feel as though some of the US and more Western ice cream companies and stores, businesses that actually are using a 3-gallon bucket or a 2.5-gallon bucket, I think we should be considering redressing those buckets from time to time, particularly if you've got something that's easily put on there, as Bob mentioned, like a stracciatella or even just a hard shell ice cream drizzle with some cookies and so forth on the top. At least every morning, have a look at the bucket situation here. A lot of people scrape down the side of the bucket, but it wouldn't do too much. I mean, I know there's food cost involved, but dressing up that bucket a little bit from time to time as you go through the day, go through the week, I think is pretty important. Here are some really good examples. This is a candied bacon ice cream that had not only the base of ice cream in and of itself, and a variegate, but it also had, that's a candied bacon jam, and then that was a piece of candied bacon on the side of it, which is really good. Same thing here, where you've got just, there's a variegate and there's a particulate not only on the top, but also permeated all the way through. Very, very well. This is a gentleman out of the UK that did a cherry, like a triple cherry ice cream, or a sorbet it was. But you've got these other textures and these other visual aspects of the product that really drew attention to it. Here he's got a full cherry, a beautiful homemade chocolate wedge, and some garnish there that really, really worked very, very well. So it's not just for the Italians. If you're not using a gelato pan, a Napoli, consider the way that your ice cream looks and redress it from time to time. I think that's pretty important. Last thing that I wanted to talk about, and I guess it can be a little bit of a sensitive one, regional influences and even national influences really do connect with people from that area. Maybe not so for everybody. Now, there were 3 US entrants that made it to the final, and all 3 of them I gave really high marks to. There was a mixed berry sorbet, actually an association member out of New Jersey, Mike Guerrero, did a great job in a mixed berry sorbet. There was an apple pie gelato out of Oklahoma, and a salted caramel pecan gelato out of Texas. And all of them were very good. And I judged them high because those were flavors and profiles that I was very comfortable with. So, these flavors that are regional or even national in the world stage, but even when we're talking about some of the flavors from a regional standpoint in our country, appeal to some, don't appeal to others. And I felt that had that competition had been held in a more Western area, these flavors would have done a lot better than they did. Hey, they got to the final. It was amazing. And I connected really well with them because I was used to that taste, that flavor, that profile. Others were not. Others didn't like the apple pie gelato. I thought it was outstanding. So there's a lesson to be learned there so far as are you connecting the flavor and the profile and the recipe to people of that region? And I give a great example. I shouldn't say a great example. I give an example of someone coming through class here that may say, well, I'll never put a gummy bear in any ice cream as long as I live. I'm going to do a top quality job on our ice cream production. Well, how many tearful kids are you going to turn away before you think, maybe I should acquiesce, which is a great word, and go through this process of adding gummy bears? So you've got to look at the regional tastes, cultural tastes, even in your city, parts of the city, what they like and what they don't, and factor some ice cream products made around them. Again, this was the mixed berry sorbet, beautiful, rich sorbet, non-dairy. This was the apple pie gelato, beautiful apple jam all the way through there with some crisp apple pie in there. And this was the salted caramel pecan. Again, very good, very popular. All 3 of them would be winners if the competition was only in the US. But you've got to kind of look at the audience and say, well, what does that audience need? Let's go into the third, second, and first place. Again, don't want to take too much of your time. We'll do some Q&A afterwards if you're still here. Third place, gentleman by the name of Marco Venturino, based out of Italy. His flavor was Bocca di Rosa, and it was a white chocolate and rose water gelato. Now, you might say that that's not overly outlandish, but the balance between the white chocolate and the rose water was just so perfect. I thought he could have put some rose petals in here. There's a beautiful white and rose petal rose in there, white chocolate and rose petal rose in each cup, which I thought was really good. But again, just that balance of flavor between 2 unusual tastes, white chocolate and rose water or rose. expensive to make. Did very well here. In fact, they live streamed him in wherever he was in Italy. And when he won, he had actually invited all of his customers. He put a big screen TV outside of his store. He was on a little square. And he probably had about 30 or 40 customers all watching the whole thing. So when he had third place in the world, would you believe it? They kind of FaceTimed him, and they were all dancing and singing in the streets, watching him win this award. Was quite good. Again, beautiful balance of flavor. Balancing flavors can be pretty tough. You can have too much white chocolate, and you don't feel that rose water, taste the rose water. And then the other way, sometimes white chocolate is just such a very delicate flavor that if it's not there in the right proportion, it doesn't come through. Second place, Carlo Guerrero from Spain. He had a cremoso al vino al rosso. I don't know what that means, but his was the image that I showed before. It was a wine-based gelato. Really nice balance of flavor. Again, I'm not a drinker. I probably didn't appreciate it as much as some. But he had this caramelized almond garnish in there. And again, people love to play with their food. So a lot of the judges were kind of taking that out, scooping it up, tasting it. It's a similar process if you did a waffle wedge with your sundae or a waffle wedge with your ice cream. People kind of use that waffle wedge, eat it a little bit, and then they kind of start spooning it up. Great balance of flavor. Again, I probably didn't appreciate how good it was because I don't drink, but he was very, very excited as well. And then the final was Adam Vazakas from Hungary. He did basically they call it a frutta di pistachio. It was basically a salted pistachio with a raspberry variegate. His was the video that I showed. Was kind of more Food Network stuff. Again, the base flavor, and I say this all the time, base flavor was a traditional favorite. The number one selling flavor throughout Europe, particularly in Italy, is pistachio. The Italians regard pistachio like we regard vanilla. If the vanilla's good, everything's good. If you walk into a gelateria and the gelato's good, everything's good. So what he did was, and it was brilliant, really, in its simplicity, he took that standard, most beloved flavor, he salted it, so it's a salted pistachio, nice balance between that kind of savory, and then he variegated it with a raspberry variegate, and he's got some crunch in there as well of pistachio crunched. Very good flavor. Again, I and all of the other judges kind of, when it came around, I was like, wow, this is good. Nice juxtaposition between the sweetness of the raspberry jam or variegate and the sharpness of the gelato. Presented well. The video did very well. A lot of people really, really liked it. So let me just wind up here. And you may, if you watch our YouTube channel, you may have seen us talk about this before. There really are three different types of flavors that you need to have. I feel that you should have. And let's say we're talking about a 20 bucket or a 20 pan case. You should have probably 2, maybe 3, sometimes 4 signature flavors. These are flavors that you are known for. For us in our stores that we've had in St. Louis and the one that we're building here in our facility, it's typically a black raspberry cheesecake. We make it during class. We give a lot of it away. People love black raspberry cheesecake. So when people walk into our business, walk into our store, and they're looking at all of these flavors in the case, you can start by saying, well, would you like to try one of our signature flavors? Ours is a black raspberry cheesecake. And that can be the benchmark for all of the other things that you have. So it doesn't need to be wildly outlandish, but it's really something that you connect with. And that's always going to be in the case, and that people can really say, boy, that's their signature flavor. The second and the bulk of the flavors, again, let's say if you had four signature flavors, which leaves 16, you might have, 14 that are traditional flavors or your spin on traditional flavors, which is what Adam Vazakas did from Hungary. He took a traditional flavor, being pistachio, and just gave it a little spin, salted it up a little bit, put a little bit of sweetness through it. It's beautiful. So again, I give the example of a lot of people love mint Oreo. So you do want to sell those traditional flavors, but you might want to put a little bit of stracciatella through it, a little bit of hard shell chocolate through it. So it's still mint Oreo, but it's just tweaked a little bit to be different in your particular business. Because in the grand scheme of things, most people are going to come in and say, oh, yeah, I'll taste the signature flavor. It's a black raspberry cheesecake. And then they'll go, oh, that's so nice. Can I have 2 scoops of cookies and cream, 1 scoop of strawberry? So if you did all of your traditional flavors just with a slight twist or spin, you're going to sell them, but they're still unique to you. And then finally, I say hook flavors, which is your avocado and asparagus ice cream. Look, in the grand scheme of things, you may not even want to keep the hook flavors in the case. You may want to have that in the freezer out the back so that it kind of creates a little bit of mystique to it. You know, you walk up and everyone sees what's in the case and they go, hey, what's in the freezer out the back? Oh, you should see what we've got in the freezer out the back. We did that with in July. 1 week in July is National Cucumber Week. And every year in that week, we make a cucumber and mint sorbet. We take a sorbet base, we peel and core the cucumbers, throw a bunch of them in there, some mint leaves, just blend it all up, run it through. That's a hook flavor. No one's buying 3 scoops of cucumber sorbet unless they're a big cucumber fan. So basically what they're doing is saying, oh, wow, this is really good. It's the hook that gets them in. Then it's the, I'll have 2 scoops of vanilla, 1 scoop of chocolate, whatever it is. I'm going to exit out of this, but let me tell you that it was such a great experience to go through this process of seeing on the world scale, on an international scale, exactly what is popular, what is not, what was being submitted. I took my time in asking different gelato makers, hey, how did you come up with this flavor? What's your market like? What's your business like? Because I'm just fascinated in the process of, these gelato and ice cream shops all around the world. Some have very similar issues, challenges, successes as we do here in the United States. So it was fantastic. It's probably another 3 years in the making. Probably the highlight of my career, I would say. Okay, let's go through some of the questions here. If you have any questions, now is the time. I'm happy to stay as late as you need to. Robert, good question here. As a rule, were the gelatos cold processed or hot processed? What proportion were custard or egg yolked? So what Bob's referring to is hot process is basically where they're making the flavor and cooking the flavor in a pasteurizer, not just the base, although hot process does refer to base mix, and then they're adding the flavor. But a lot of those actually were creating the flavor in the pasteurizer. Now, the challenge is in the US is that if you were to buy a pasteurizer, the term pasteurizer in the US must involve record keeping. So I have a Pasto Master 60. It's a pasteurizer in any other country. Here it's a heater mixer. So I can put ingredients, milk, cream, sugar, egg, stabilizer, skim milk powder, and heat that product up to, let's say, 190 degrees Fahrenheit, and then just use that as my base. So it's going to take it up to 190. It's going to sit there for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes, as long as you want, because that cooking process actually helps with the flavor of the ice cream. It'll bring it back down to, let's say, 38, 39 degrees. You'll let it age in the tank there. The challenge is I have no record to say that it actually hit that benchmark. So if someone got sick from that gelato and the health department came over, or the ag department, the agricultural department, they'll say, well, where's the record of where this actually reached a certain point? And in the grand scheme of things, we don't have it. We just say, well, we just programmed it in. So if you wanted to do a hot process or make your own mix, you really do need to have that recording equipment. Cold process is where you're basically just adding milk and some other dairy, perhaps, to a base, a powdered base that does not need to be heated. And you've got companies like Pre-Gel and Mech3 and Fabry and Stella that are all making those powders. It's relatively easy to make a cold processed gelato. Check with the state. State of California does not allow you to combine two pasteurized products, even if one is powdered and the other is liquid. So you can't take milk, 4% milk, and put it into a gelato powder that already has caseinate or a dairy product in it, which is a challenge. So yeah, the vast majority were hot process. A lot easier to do that internationally than it is here. Michael, was the second place wine gelato one without the garnish? That's a great question. So when they did the video, they actually showed how they were presented at their heat. And if you recall the pistachio, there was kind of like a smear. That's not a nice word, but a smear of the raspberry, and then the pistachio was put on top as a scoop, and then the crumble was put on the top. So it wasn't presented to us like that. But that particular, the way you saw it in the cup, there was the way it was presented to us. Yes, it won with the garnish. It did. It didn't win. Oh, I see what you're saying. Would the second place wine gelato won without the garnish? That's actually a great question. And I don't know. I'll tell you that I probably would have rated it lower. I really like the connectivity or the interactiveness of the variegates and the garnish. Mate, that's a great question. Melissa, how do you feel about Pre-Gel America? Is it authentic Italian gelato? I believe it is cold processed. Melissa, they do both. We have Pre-Gel products here at our facility as well as other companies. I've always found them to be very easy to work with, very good quality. I think you'll find that really anything that was manufactured in Italy is going to be a little bit more expensive. So in the grand scheme of things, whether it's Pre-Gel or Stella or Mech3, it's more than likely going to be a little bit more expensive. But I do know that Pre-Gel has a really good support process here in the United States and really all over the world. Whenever I am talking to someone internationally, and I do it all the time, last week we had a call from someone in Zambia who, in their country, the dairy infrastructure isn't very good. Chile is kind of the same. And so in those places where they say, well, I can't make my own, I can't get a liquid mix, what are my options? And my first two go-to is generally Pre-Gel, because they just have representation in most countries. They've got training facilities as well. We can do a free course. I think in the US here, there's one in North Carolina, there's one in Chicago, and I think there's one on the West Coast. But very good company. I worked with them nearly the whole 18 years that we've been in the United States. So I would recommend them. Very, very good. Okay. Well, listen, hey, I appreciate you joining along with us. Any other questions? I'm more than happy to post. Again, just as a plug, North American Ice Cream Association, if you go to icecreamassociation.org, if you're not a member, I really would encourage you to join. It's $225 a year, and that's for your business, not per person. If for nothing else, there's a lot of different great member benefits. If for nothing else, the convention that we have every November is off the chain. And I just spoke to a gentleman yesterday who renewed his membership, and he just said networking with people at that event was just so good. So that's the North American Ice Cream Association, formerly NICRA. And then Scoop School. If you have any questions about Scoop School, please feel free to reach out. Again, we do these live streams every Friday, so we've kind of opened the window for you a little bit on our Friday. But next week we'll be back in the store doing a recipe. So for those Scoop School community members, again, we charge $49 a month. You can stay as long as you want. The nice thing is that when you join that community, you get access to all of the previous recordings, which is a real benefit. So, Bob, thank you so much. It was great to be inside the gelato competition, mate. It was honestly, it was a great education. I just love seeing how other people do things. I really enjoyed being in the Carpigiani facility and having a look at their school, Carpigiani University. Outstanding. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Again, reach out if you have any questions. Keep an eye on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. We always post updates and videos here. We have one more video that Madeline's just finishing editing from Venice, where we went on the hunt for the best gelato in Venice. Keep an eye out for that. Should be out today. And as we always say at the end of all of our sessions, keep on scooping. We'll see you very soon. Bye.